I come with no other agenda than desperately trying to help people who are in need. And I see that as part of my role. I think it's really important that we can try and change and tackle the narrative around homelessness.
While walking through the city on what seemed like a routine public engagement, Prince William unexpectedly came face to face with a homeless veteran holding a weathered sign and a haunting story. What happened next wasn't rehearsed or in the royal itinerary, and it left everyone around absolutely speechless. In a rare, decisive moment caught on camera, the future king showed a side few ever see. Was it compassion? Was it defiance of protocol? This unexpected act is stirring hearts across the globe. And you won't believe what he did next. The Invisible Man. It was the kind of morning that made London feel even lonelier than usual. A cold, misty gray that hung in the air like the city itself was holding its breath. The rain didn't fall in drops. It simply hovered, brushing against faces and coats like a silent, tired whisper. The streets buzzed with the usual rush, commuters with coffee in one hand and umbrellas in the other, heads down, thoughts tucked safely away behind the chill of winter and the weight of routine. Not far from Westminster, just by a bustling train station, a man sat unnoticed, blending into the background like a forgotten part of the scenery. Curled up between two trash bins, he looked more like a pile of discarded clothes than a person. A damp, tattered blanket clung to his shoulders, doing little to protect him from the cold that had long made a home in his bones. His boots, cracked and torn, had seen better days, perhaps better lives. His hands were raw, chapped by the unforgiving wind, holding a piece of cardboard as if it were his last connection to the world. Royal Army veteran, anything helps. That was all it said. No dramatic plea, no name. Just the echo of a man who had once mattered. His name was Thomas Riley, but no one called him that anymore. The crowd moved around him like a river around a stone. Some glanced his way. Most didn't. A few coins clinked into a tin by his side. No one spoke to him. No one stopped. Then came the disruption. "Move along, mate," a sharp voice ordered. A security guard in a neon vest stood over him, impatient. Thomas didn't move. He didn't even flinch. "You're making the place look bad," the guard continued, nudging the cardboard with the toe of his boot. Thomas whispered, "I'm not bothering anyone." "You're an eyesore," came the cold reply. Thomas's voice rose, fragile but firm. "I fought for this country, bled for it. Is this my thank you?" But the guard had already turned away, and the world kept walking. But something unexpected happened. What happened next? Let's find out. A quiet arrival. Just then, a sleek black Range Rover glided to a halt, barely making a sound. The doors opened, and two sharply dressed security officers stepped out, eyes scanning the surroundings with quiet precision. A moment later, a tall man emerged, dressed in a rich navy coat, his scarf tucked perfectly in place. His walk was upright, confident, but without arrogance. It was Prince William. He was supposed to head straight to Stuart's Academy, a nearby school eagerly awaiting his visit as part of his well-known mental health initiative, Heads Together. Cameras were already clicking at the school gate, reporters standing by for his arrival. But the prince didn't head that way. Instead, his eyes caught something different, a slight commotion near the train station. A cardboard sign resting against a duffel bag. A man sitting alone on a damp bench. He saw Thomas. Without hesitation, William turned and walked toward him. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his tone calm and steady. The security guard flinched, clearly startled. Your Highness, I didn't realize." But William raised a hand, no anger, no rebuke, just a quiet signal to pause. His focus was now on the man sitting in the rain. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The man looked up, disoriented. "Thomas. Thomas Riley. Prince William's eyes fell on a worn dog tag around Thomas's neck and a faint, almost forgotten tattoo on his wrist, the emblem of the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers. "You served?" William asked softly. Thomas nodded. "Afghanistan, 2007 to 2011. Came back to this." The guard silently stepped back, sensing this was no longer his moment. William reached into his coat and pulled out a takeaway cup. "Here," he said, handing it over. "It's still warm." Thomas hesitated, eyes widening. "You really don't have to." "I want to," William replied simply, and with that, he lowered himself onto the cold, wet bench beside Thomas. No umbrella, no cameras, just two men in the rain, one royal, one forgotten, sharing a cup of coffee and something far more rare: human dignity. As Prince William walked up to Thomas, the elderly war veteran in his wheelchair, the moment held more than just warmth and respect. It reflected a deeper connection, shaped by shared values of duty and service. William's handshake wasn't just royal formality, it was a salute from one serviceman to another. William seemed to connect more due to his military background. Let's take a quick dive into William's military journey. The military path of Prince William. Though a prince by birth, William has carved out a military path that reflects genuine commitment. After completing his studies at the University of St. Andrews in 2005, he chose to serve his country in uniform, training at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, and becoming an Army officer in 2005-2006. He began with the elite Household Cavalry, known for both their ceremonial presence and operational responsibilities, before expanding his service across all three branches of the British military. William's versatility shone as he moved to the Royal Air Force, where he trained as a search and rescue pilot. Over time, he carried out 156 rescue missions, even serving in the rugged terrain of the Falkland Islands. His desire to make a real difference led him to become an air ambulance pilot from 2015 to 2017, where he helped save lives in critical situations. Today, he may not wear the uniform daily, but his honorary military titles speak of a service that went beyond symbolism. This legacy of royal service runs deep. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, set a powerful example during World War II. At just 17, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, training as a mechanic and military truck driver, the first female royal to actively serve in the armed forces. Moments like his meeting with Thomas quietly echo this tradition. Yet they also stir public reflection, especially when Prince Harry, who also served in the military with distinction, appeared at Queen Elizabeth II's funeral in civilian clothes, unlike William and others. The protocol surrounding military uniforms at royal events has fueled conversations, but for William, the connection with veterans like Thomas is more than clothing. It's a bond forged in shared understanding of service and sacrifice. Going back to the scene that captures William and Thomas in seclusion amidst the busy city, the duo can be seen having a heartfelt moment. Let's look further into the conversation between William and Thomas, the bench, and the rain. For a long moment, the two men sat quietly side by side, saying nothing. Around them, the city kept buzzing with life. Cars passed, people rushed by, time didn't stop, but something about that moment between them felt different, like the world had slowed down just for them. Then William spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thomas, if you've served this country, then you're not invisible. Not to me." Thomas blinked rapidly, his eyes wet with emotion. It had been years, maybe decades, since he last cried. But those words touched a place in him long buried. "I used to wear the uniform too," William said gently. "It makes you feel like you belong, like you're someone. But when the uniform comes off, It's like stepping into silence, where no one hears you anymore. Thomas let out a dry chuckle, filled with a mix of humor and pain. Yeah, but you had a castle. I had a bar fight, and a broken pint glass. William didn't smile. He only nodded slowly. Some wounds don't bleed, but that doesn't mean they don't ache. Thomas looked down, his voice low and rough. I don't want your pity. This isn't pity, William replied. This is me seeing you, truly seeing you. They fell into silence again, but this one felt different. It wasn't heavy or awkward. It wasn't the silence of being forgotten. It was a silence that felt alive, full, like something had finally been spoken, and now there was space for healing. With the duo experiencing an emotional connection that is at its peak, what did William do about his scheduled event at the school? Did he postpone the visit, or did he invite Thomas to come along? Let's find out. A promise made. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. A young aide stepped in quietly and spoke in a hushed voice. Sir, it's time. They're waiting for us at the school. William gave a small nod, but made no move to get up. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn leather notepad. His fingers worked quickly as he scribbled a few lines. Then, with careful hands, he tore the page, folded it, and gently tucked it into the inner pocket of Thomas's coat. I want to help you, William said, his voice calm but filled with something deeper, something real. Not just empty words or polite gestures, real help, if you'll let me. Thomas froze. His eyes locked onto William's, searching for hidden motives. Why would you want to help me? He asked, his voice low and cautious. William didn't look away. He held Thomas's gaze with quiet conviction. Because when a nation turns its back on those who sacrificed for it, it loses more than just its history. It loses its soul. The room went still. Thomas didn't reply right away. His shoulders, once stiff with years of pain and pride, seemed to ease just a little. A trace of light, perhaps doubt, perhaps hope, passed through his tired eyes. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. William stood up slowly, smoothing down his coat. I'll come back, he said gently. You'll see me again. There was a long pause before Thomas finally gave a small nod. It wasn't big. It wasn't loud. But it meant something. I'd like that, he said quietly, almost surprised by his own words. As William stepped out into the hallway, the door closing softly behind him, the air in the room felt different, as if the weight had shifted, just slightly, as if hope, long buried, had started to breathe again. The experience was an unforgettable one, bringing more scenes to William's memory. Let's delve into the details of one of the memorable scenes that got evoked by his meeting with Thomas. Remembering a fall. The car was quiet, save for the gentle sound of raindrops tracing their way down the window. William sat in silence, his gaze distant, lost in thought. The soft hum of the engine filled the air, but after a moment, he broke the silence. I saw a man fall today, he said, his voice low, almost as if he were speaking to himself. The aide, sitting beside him, glanced over, confused. What do you mean? William turned slightly to face him. It wasn't today. It was a few months ago. Catherine and I were in Essex visiting Stuart's Academy. When we arrived, Vice Lord Lieutenant Jonathan Douglas Hughes was there, standing in full uniform, looking quite the part. He paused, his eyes focused on the memory as if replaying the scene in his mind. As we walked toward him, he stepped back to let us pass. And then he fell. Right there, in front of all the cameras, in front of everyone. The aide winced, probably imagining the awkwardness of the moment. William's expression softened, and a small smile tugged at his lips. I didn't hesitate. I just reached out, instinctively. I helped him up, and he looked at me, a little embarrassed, and said, "Sorry about that." I just smiled and said, "No, it's fine." Because honestly, it was. He looked directly at the aide now, his tone firm yet calm. You see, it's never really about the fall. It's about how we choose to help people get back on their feet when they stumble. With that, William pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his mind already moving on to the next task. What is this new task about? Was he verifying Thomas's claim? Or was he pulling some strings to help the poor man? Let's find out. A call for help. "Captain Lewis here," came the voice over the phone. "Dan, it's Will." William's voice crackled through the line. "Your Highness, I can't believe it's been so long," Dan replied, clearly surprised and pleased to hear from him. "I don't have much time for pleasantries, Dan," William said quickly. "I need your help with something important." Dan's tone shifted, now attentive. "Of course, what's going on?" "It's a veteran, Thomas Riley. He served his country, but now he's living on the streets," William explained, his voice heavy with concern. Dan paused, processing the weight of the request. "I'm listening," he said, his voice firm with seriousness. "He's in desperate need of a place to stay," William continued, "but it's not just about finding him a roof over his head. He needs somewhere safe, somewhere with people who understand what he's been through." Dan was quiet for a moment, thinking. "There's actually a program I know about," he said after a beat. "It's small, quiet, and run by veterans themselves. It's not just about providing beds. They focus on healing, getting back on track." William's relief was evident. "That sounds perfect. I'll bring him to you." Dan smiled, his tone softening. "I'll be ready, Will. We'll take care of him." And just like that, a plan was set in motion to offer help and hope to someone who'd once given everything for their country, but now found themselves lost. It wasn't just about giving them a place to stay. It was about giving them the chance to heal and rebuild. Did William return to Thomas as promised? Or did he send some of his aides, being a very busy person? Let's delve into the details. The unexpected return. Half an hour later, William returned to the same spot. The bench was still there, just as it had been before, and so was Thomas. "You came back?" Thomas asked, his voice a mix of surprise and curiosity. "I said I would," William replied, his voice steady and calm. Without another word, they both settled down on the bench again, side by side. William broke the silence after a while, his voice gentle. "Got anywhere to stay tonight?" Thomas let out a dry chuckle. "Usually under the bridge. It's dry, but it's noisy." A thoughtful pause hung between them before William spoke again. "You don't have to stay there anymore," he said quietly. "There's a place. Safe, clean, people who've been through what you have." Thomas blinked, his eyes wide, as if trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. "You did that? For me?" William's expression softened. "I did it because no one else has. And that's not right." Thomas shook his head slowly, almost as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "But you don't even know me." "I know enough," William answered. "I saw the flag you wore." Thomas's eyes darkened, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "I used to be strong, didn't cry when I was in the war, not even when I lost my brother." William said nothing but let the silence stretch between them, listening intently. But now, Thomas's voice broke, and his words faltered. "If I say one more word." Tears began to fall, quietly and without control, as if they had been waiting to escape for too long. William didn't flinch. He didn't look away. "You don't have to be strong anymore," he said gently. "You've already done your time." Thomas let out a soft laugh, the sound bitter. "You're not what I thought a prince would be." William smiled slightly. "I hear that a lot." He stood, extending his hand toward Thomas, "Let's get you somewhere warm," he said, and, in the soft gray light of the fading day, the two of them, prince and soldier, walked away together. Prince William's thoughtful action was a sincere act of humanity that was never captured by any media outlet. Let's dig into Thomas's new experience as he opens a new door. A new door. The following morning, the clouds that had shrouded London for days finally parted, and the sun peeked through, casting a warm glow over the city. Thomas stood at the entrance of a modest building on the outskirts of town. A simple sign hung on the door, its words clear yet inviting. Haven House, Veteran Recovery and Renewal Center. In his hand, he tightly clutched the note William had given him. It had been folded and unfolded so many times that it had become soft and worn, like something cherished. As Thomas stood there, lost in thought, the door swung open. A woman with a kind smile greeted him. "Mr. Riley, we've been expecting you," she said warmly. With a nod, he stepped inside. The air smelled fresh, and the walls were painted a calming shade of soft blue. Along the hallway, framed photos of veterans, faces filled with strength and stories, lined the walls. These were the faces of those who had overcome their struggles and found a new path. That day, Thomas was treated with care. He received a thorough medical checkup, a dental appointment, and a hearty, comforting lunch. As if that wasn't enough, he was shown to a quiet room with a soft bed, a place where he could finally rest. A counselor introduced herself and assured him, "Whenever you're ready, we're here for you." There were opportunities available, training in security, welding, and logistics, but there was no rush. No pressure, they said, just possibilities. For the first time in a long while, Thomas felt seen. He wasn't just another face in the crowd, he was welcomed, valued, and cared for. Meanwhile, across London, Prince William sat alone by a window, far from the cameras and the bright lights of his public life. He smiled to himself, knowing that sometimes all it takes to change a life is for one person to say, "I see you," and truly mean it. What do you think about Prince William's selfless help towards the homeless veteran? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.